Birmingham win the top of the table clash while there is a 7-goal thriller at Oakwell, and we hear from Shrewsbury Town manager Gareth Ainsworth. Welcome to the League One Lowdown. A new intro there as well for the first time on this, the review show. I'm Jamie Johnson, alongside Seb Jones. I realise that anyone listening to this will be absolutely clueless to what I mean about the little video package there. But for everyone on YouTube, you got a new little video to watch along. Seb, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, you alluded to it a little bit earlier on, but yeah, I was at an exciting game yesterday, so more on that. So on a bit of a high after that one on Sunday morning at the time of recording. So yes, very good. What about yourself? How was your weekend so far?
Yeah, I'm good as well. I was also at quite an exciting game. Not as many goals, but a lot more incidents. And we'll talk about that in the second half. We will talk about the Barnsley game as well, but we've shuffled the pack a little bit in terms of our running order from some news we got half an hour ago before recording, and that is the news from Wigan Athletic that Shaun Maloney has left Wigan, parting company, sacking their manager, assistant manager Max Rogers also departing. Before I guess we go into the specifics, what do we make to it overall, Seb? Because I was a little bit surprised when I went on my phone this morning and saw that Maloney has left Wigan.
Yeah, well, on the face of it, that's what it absolutely is. It is a bit of a surprise, really. Like Maloney has been there a couple of seasons now. Obviously, not done anything massively with them, but ultimately, when he's been there, he's kept them in the league. You know, there's been so much troubles and so much off the field issues at Wigan in recent years, and Maloney. There was a time where there went through quite a few managers in a short space of time, and Maloney sort of came in, steadied the ship a little bit, got them on a consistent basis above the relegation sort of area, drop zone, if you like, and he's done exactly that this season as well, but has been sacked with sort of 2 months to go before the end of the season. So question marks really over timing, I think. I guess maybe the owners are worried maybe that they could get dragged into a bit of a scrap at the bottom, and even still, there's a lot of distance, both like numerically in terms of league position and also points wise as well. So I'm not really sure. It is a bit of a bizarre one, really. Like, and the timing as well, and I don't really get it. It just confused me a little bit, the decision.
Yeah, it seemed to come out of the blue. Obviously, we're not completely clued in on Wigan and that sort of thing, but it did seem to come out of the blue, and it's been very divided in terms of comments you've seen on social media in terms of the reaction. He joined in January 2023 and really sort of steadied a ship after that initial relegation from the Championship, because it has been really turbulent times at Wigan, and his last game, it turned out, was against Reading, who are obviously another club who have been in really turbulent sort of waters of late. They finished 12th last season, his first full season in charge, and the run comes just one win in their last 8. They're 15th, as you mentioned there, Seb. There is a big gap in terms of how many teams are below them between themselves and the relegation zone, and it is 6 points, the difference there. So that perhaps the difference in terms of the points is worse than the actual league positioning, because you look at it and you go, it's only 2 games, but there are a lot of teams in that buffer below, sort of creating a bit of distance. The reason, before I put it back to you, said that they put in the statement, Wigan, was home results and performances being below the standard supporters expect. That's the reasoning that has been given. It just, I don't know if you can find a reason that makes sense, because for me, they're going to stay up. They're not going up. They're not going down. So they're going to finish mid-table, which where they were last season is where they sort of are already this season. Do it at the end of the season. I don't know why this decision's been made now, because all it's doing is really sort of shaking up the whole place, really. And it's just really mixing things up when you need a bit of stability this time of season. When you're just above the drop zone, you just need to carry on and just keep going, really. And to really mix things around like this and sort of throw a spanner in the works, I think is a little bit regressive in terms of the objective, because I don't really know what they want for the end of the season. They're going to finish mid-table. That's as good as it's going to be. Is there much difference between finishing 12th and 15th? Not really.
No.
I think they should have done it if they were to get rid of Maloney. Do it in the summer, because I think at the minute I really don't see how it can be a positive impact.
No, I absolutely sort of echo with the points you just covered there. You mentioned that the statement referred to their poor home form. I just got the stats up for sort of the home and away record. Away from home, they picked up 20 points. At home, they picked up 19 points. So there's only 1 point in that. So, but I guess away from home, things are a little bit more even. So they played 16 in the league, won 5, drawn 5, lost 6. Whereas at home, played 17, won 5, drawn 4, lost 8. So it is worse, but actually there's only 1 point in it between the home form and away form. I guess just results wise, there's been more defeats on in the home turf, but actually like 15th place, 39 points. I really don't think a manager at that club with that record, I don't think they deserve sacking at all. Really, you mentioned sort of some of the off-field troubles that we're going to face in recent times. I think actually they're about where we expect. Really, like it's not as though they're massively underachieving or they're in serious risk of getting relegation, as you sort of mentioned there. Like they're just doing as if they're just doing fine. Like I don't really get it. You want a manager. People complain about consistency all the time, and managers being sacked too easily. Well, Maloney's been there 2 years, and after all the troubles Wigan have been through, like he deserves to be paid back. Really, with a chance of, I don't know, maybe going at a playoff push next season. But he's now not got that opportunity, having done such a good job in the past few years to steady the ship a little bit and get a decent, sort of consistent form. I guess certainly that their away form is more or less identical in terms of home away wins, defeats, and draws as well. I don't really think that's a valid excuse in terms of the home form being poor. I see that as a bit of a cop out for me. Like I don't think it's that drastic to do such a change in terms of get rid of the manager. From my point of view, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think I agree, and that can be a reason at the end of the season. And I'll come back to that point. I think at the end of the season, if you look back and you go, well, we've not been good enough at home, we've not been picking up enough points, because you expect to pick up more at home than you do on the road. Yeah. I don't think mid-season that is really a reason to use the pick out the part of the actual statement, that the full quote. It cannot be overlooked that the current League One campaign has clearly not progressed as anticipated. Home results and performances in particular have been disappointing and below the standard at which our supporters expect. For this reason, the board felt it was time for a change. That is the official reasoning. Yeah. So, I mean, we're both sort of sitting on the other side of things there. Overall, though, 115 games in charge, 45 wins, 27 draws, and 43 losses. It works out at 1.41 points per game and a 39% win rate. It's mid-table form, isn't it? Yeah. Which is where they are. So I still feel like it's come a little bit out of the blue. And at the minute, I think it's probably the wrong decision. Perhaps at the end of the season, you can look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense. But to do it now, at this time of the season, as we're into March now, there's not long left. And if they take a bit of time to get a manager in, it can really the wheels can come off of it, and they could end up further down and closer to that relegation scrap. The former Ireland international Glenn Whelan has took interim charge. I guess before we move on, the last thing to talk about is who we think could replace him. Obviously, very early days. It is about 40 minutes, the time of recording, since the announcement was made. Anyone jumping off the page for you so early on? Because you got the Cambridge one right last week, in fairness to.
We did, albeit slightly,
fortuitously, probably.
Exactly that, yeah. I genuinely think they might stick with Whelan until the end of the season on an interim basis. I think because of the points we've covered, like they don't need a manager to come in and save a season or like, I think they'll just stick with Whelan until the end of the season. Actually, the recent form has been quite good, bearing the result on Saturday. It's 2 draws and a win in the last 4. Like I think that's pretty good going. So they just need someone just to keep ticking results along. And Whelan's been involved in the backroom staff so far this season. So I think it'd just be right just to sort of keep him in add his own mini tweaks, but sort of keep that consistent basis going. Yeah, I think it would just be give it Whelan that classic phrase. I didn't think I'd be saying that. Bear in mind, I used to watch Glenn Whelan play, but give it Whelan until the end of the season, and I think that will be the case. What about you? Who's your favourite? Who are you going for?
I don't know. I think that makes sense in terms of to the end of the season because, as we've both mentioned, there's not long left. The one that jumps out to me immediately, for no other reason other than sort of geographically, is Ryan Lowe. Obviously, most recently at Preston.
Yeah.
And I know he's out of work at the minute still, and he's got to be going somewhere eventually. And this makes sense. Perhaps it is going to be in the summer. I know Tranmere also. He's a couple of people on social media saw linking into that, but I think that is very much a step too low down for him. And I think a League One job makes sense in this one, perhaps being the one for him. But yeah, end of the season, that could be where that goes. But we will wait and see. I'm sure Sam and Callum will have something more and perhaps a bit more information will be available by the time they come to record their podcast or later on in the week. But we'll move ahead to reviewing the games now. And if you have a Wigan fan, do comment what you think to sort of the decision and if you who you agree with. You think maybe it's going to be Ryan Lowe or someone else, or you think we've said that Glenn Whelan may stick around for the rest of the season. But as I say, moving on to the games, and we'll first start with the top of the table clash I mentioned right at the very top of the episode. Birmingham City against Wycombe Wanderers. It went the way of the league leaders, and 8 points clear at Birmingham now, and they've still got a game in hand. And the other side to things, Wycombe, they're in a little bit of a rough patch in terms of they're not winning very consistently, and they're only 2 points ahead of third now, so they're only just about clinging on to that second automatic spot. But I guess the main talking point is title race over, Seb?
Yeah, well, we'll start with Birmingham. Yeah, absolutely. I think title race over. Yeah, 12 points between them and Wycombe, who are currently in second. So the top two playing each other. And I'll be honest, I think this game, I thought there'd been a few more goals in this one between sort of the two top sides in the division. But it was just a one goal courtesy of Gardner Hickman that gave the home side Birmingham all 3 points in this one. But yeah, it's certainly one that sort of, I guess, just extends Birmingham's lead at the top of the table. Just ensures really that they're just out running the field. Like there's no one going to chase them down anytime soon. Really, so they've just put such an advantage between them and the teams below them. So yeah, another sort of 3 points, another clean sheet. They'll be very happy with. And yeah, sort of job done. Good performance, hung on there. Probably helped by Wycombe being down to 10 for the whole of the second 45. So when you play against 10 men, things tend to be slightly favourable in your point of view. So that probably helped them in the second half. Although they didn't, the goal they did score was in the first half. So yeah, good 3 points, ticking along, and yeah, definitely I think just ensures that the top spot in the league will go Birmingham's way for sure.
Yeah, they're just a class above, aren't they? This division, they have been all season, and we're not going to play the klaxon that was played by Callum and Sam on Thursday. But they're just a step above the whole division, and that has been evident the entire season. And when they're playing a team like Wycombe, who are up there and the only team anywhere near them, and they're beating them here, dominating the ball really even before the red card, and that red card really made it a mountain to climb, didn't it? Simon sent off in first half injury time, sort of killed the contest, even at 1-0. I spoke to a Wycombe fan, and he said that to switch across to them, that it showed a lot of character, that it was only 1-0 in the end. Obviously, they were 1-0 down, the red card, and it showed a lot of character. He thought that they'd not capitulated, they didn't go to sort of panic stations, and they managed to keep it to 1-0, but a loss at the end of the day is a loss. It's their first in the league since a 1-0 defeat to Huddersfield on the 7th of January. But since then, they've drew as many as they've won, which has sort of been the issue. They're not losing games, but they're not winning enough of them to create and keep a gap between themselves and third.
Yeah, in all competitions, they've only won one in the last 5, and that includes, if you class it actually, a draw in the FA Cup that they went on to lose in penalties. So I guess that's basically 2 defeats in the last 5. So certainly drop off in form for sure. Things that are just slightly not going in their favour from a Wycombe point of view, since Mighty Dodds come in, he's not really got the ground running. He's got a couple of good results here and there, but I guess since when he joined, I guess people just expected for him to continue that trend that Bloomfield set in, that they're overachieving, winning games, just ticking along nicely, but they just haven't quite been able to do that since Dodds took over. Lots of draws in there, especially some disappointing ones against the likes for clubs at the bottom, such as Cambridge and Crawley away. So, it's those sort of games where they should be winning, but actually they're not winning. It has meant that they're pretty close to Wrexham, who would now, having played the same amount of games, are now only 2 points behind. So it does sort of mean that having had such a bit of a lead and a gap in that automatic spot, so that they're now sort of looking over the shoulder a little bit at Wrexham, just chomping at the bit to get that second spot. So disappointing, I guess, the result on the face of it, but actually, like I said, sort of standing the ground well in that second half, making sure the Birmingham didn't score anymore with 10 men as well. I guess that can be credited, but actually on paper, results need to improve.
I'd agree with that, and they are, as you said yourself, looking over their shoulder now, which is the exact opposite to where they were even a couple of months ago. Then they were really sort of in step with Birmingham, but now they're definitely looking in the opposite direction. So it'd be interesting to see how that lasts, and we're going to talk about them in a bit more detail in our next episode. We're doing a bonus show for the full midweek run of fixtures. So if you've not quite had enough of me and Seb, you get an extra half an hour or so tomorrow. It'll be released on Monday. Looking ahead to the full slate of fixtures on Tuesday night. We'll move on to our second. It's a big game of the weekend. This was one you were at, Seb. 7-goal thriller. Barnsley 4, Lincoln 3. I've got a couple of bits I want to say about Lincoln, but I know you'll be delighted, I'm sure, that your team were 4-1 up and made it difficult, but they won, and that's all that matters.
Exactly that. You take the 3 points, no matter how they come. But certainly made it hard for themselves. Did Barnsley, but having gone a 3-0 up in the first place to then sort of win the game 4-3, I guess is probably the taking point from the game. But 3 points is 3 points, 4 different goal scorers as well. And just good to see you sort of back in a bit of a free flowing form in terms of attacking positions as well. That's 3 wins in a week now, which is really good going against obviously Lincoln, Northampton, and then before that we were victorious in the game last after which I can't remember who we played, but
Rotherham, South Yorkshire Derby.
South Yorkshire Derby, yeah.
You was there.
It was that drab. I forgot I was there. So that's 3 wins on the bout, which I think is really good going. Having looked sort of in amongst the playoff race and then results elsewhere. Bad results have meant that we sort of dropped out of it a little bit. We're now looking more or less in it again. Only 4 points clear of Charlton in 6th, and we play Charlton on Tuesday. So that would mean the gap would close to just 1 point should Barnsley get 3 points. So certainly sort of result over performance for a large extent. Actually, I think for about 70 minutes Barnsley were the better side, but Lincoln came into this one. I think from a player sort of you've seen and admired quite a bit ever since they made a change and brought Rico Hackett off the bench. He was the star player. Everything that he did going forward sort of just gave Lincoln a bit of hope going in attack, and suddenly sort of to actually lose a game 4-3 is pretty disappointing. But Barnsley did the win. Good game for the neutral. Not a good game for the heart rate for Barnsley fans. But nevertheless, 3 points and three wins in a week, which I think is really good going and puts us back amongst it.
Exactly that. We'll talk about Lincoln in just a second. The other thing really to pick up on a Barnsley side of things, you mentioned they're getting that little bit closer to the playoffs. And Davis Keillor-Dunn has scored again. He's got 14 in all competitions, 13 of those in the league, and he's got 3 in 2 games, including a really lovely goal against Northampton on Tuesday night. He's been in unbelievable form sort of throughout the season, and at the minute he's really hit sort of the pedal. He's put his foot down on the pedal, hasn't he, if you like, really accelerated this good run of form, and he's been key, you've got to imagine. I mean, obviously, you look at the stats, you see he's scoring goals, but it just looks like he's been the key to Barnsley turning the corner a little bit.
For sure, yeah. 13 goals, 3 assists since joining from Mansfield in August, and he's been pivotal. So we're asking him to play slightly. I know at Mansfield he played as a cam, whereas for us he's sort of playing as a
Number 10.
striker. Really, yeah, number 10, yeah. Whereas for us he's playing more of a striker role, which I guess a question marks when he sort of first started playing. But actually he's performing, and ultimately his numbers are showing exactly that. And alongside Humphreys, the past few games actually formed quite a nice partnership between the two of them, linking up at Northampton and then again at the weekend against Lincoln as well. So yeah, David Kee's got on fire. He is mental. Like he's such a good player for the Reds, and we've had a few injury issues this season. Unfortunately, he's been a consistent figure that has sort of been there for the team, stepped up when needed. Yes, perhaps he does sometimes have his quieter games, but that's him for all players. When he's on it, he's absolutely on it, and that's 3 goals in a week for David Keelan, and a really nice one. He opened the score. If you've not seen it, check it out. He opened the scoring on Saturday with a nice sort of lobbed goal over the Lincoln goalkeeper. So a great finish in that one as well. And yeah, he's the star man for Barnsley at the minute.
On Lincoln, then they are struggling. Is the only word for it. 1 win in 7. It's really sort of dismal is how probably one of the better words to describe it. And I've seen a couple of bits on Twitter X, I guess as we should say, that Skubala was at least jeered off at half time. I don't know if you could either confirm or deny that. And before I go into more detail in Lincoln, because obviously the dugout is the sort of entrance to the pitch is down by the away fans at Oakwell.
Yeah, I can absolutely, yeah. It was true. He was sort of booed off. I guess undeservedly, really. I know Barnsley had a 2-0 lead, but it wasn't. Lincoln didn't play awfully. Lincoln had sort of half chances that they absolutely messed up. But I don't know. The 2-0 down, I guess, on the face of it, but they didn't play awful. You know, I've seen sides much worse come to play at Hartwell, but I guess the fans are clearly not happy. I guess it's a bigger picture in terms of results recently just haven't been good enough. So I guess it sort of add that to fire of being 2-0 down after 45. So yeah, it was good off half time, and Lincoln actually overall were quite disappointed. Really, last time they came to Oakwell, they sort of blew us away. Really. But they were really disappointed, and they seemed to just be there for the taking. Every time Barnsley went forward, Lincoln's defence seemed to collapse. Really, I don't know if that's. I guess praise Barnsley's attack, but also got to sort of call out Lincoln's defence as well. And I guess the game sort of changed when Hackett came off the bench, as I mentioned. But yeah, up until that point, Lincoln didn't really have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you don't like to call out specific players because everyone makes mistakes in different games, but it looked like 3 of the goals were individual errors.
Yeah.
And that was something I spoke to someone on the Lincoln side of things who was there, and they said that the difference was individual errors. They didn't play awfully, as you've sort of alluded to. In the last half an hour, Lincoln were on top for that sort of period of the game, but they were just individual errors. I know Adam Jackson made a couple, and he's been very reliable. So a real blip for him, and it's just unfortunate, really, that you make those mistakes and then they're punished. But you can't do it against a team like Barnsley. They've got good players, and they've got good players at the top end of the pitch who are in form. And if you make mistakes, you're going to get punished. I think it was Jeffries as well for the 4th goal. It's just little bits like that. You make those little mistakes, and big teams, good teams, punish those errors, and that's what's done Lincoln in the end. That they've made mistakes and they've been punished for them. Rico Hackett, you mentioned off the bench, was sort of the star of the show from a Lincoln perspective. It was a little bit of a confusing selection for Michael Skubala. One of the other points was James Collins, who has been the only goal-scoring threat Lincoln have since he came in January, and he was on the bench not because of any injury concerns. It seemed like when Michael Skubala talking after the game that it was purely a selection decision, which firmly, I mean, it's easy to say that after defeat, but it's easy to say after defeat. So the hindsight is 2020 and all of that sort of thing. But it's the wrong decision. You got a man scoring goals. You got to play him. Sam Klukas was sick, which was the reason he was on the bench apparently, with Michael Skubala speaking after the game. But it's just a real mess at the minute. They're going to finish mid-table, Lincoln. They're not going down. They're not going up. A bit like Wigan, but the fans are expecting more. And if it's not results, it's performances as well. I think it's a mixture of both. I don't think people mind too much if their team are losing, if they're playing well and they're playing entertaining football, because you pay a good bit of money to go and watch these teams, and the season ticket prices, I beg your pardon, have gone up. I think it's about 5% they've gone up by in these last couple of weeks. So it's come at a bad time, really, that they've had to release the season tickets for next season, in that it's come in this bad vein of form, and you're paying a lot of money to see your team you support, and you just want to be entertained as much as go home happy. And Lincoln are getting neither at the minute. They need to win on Tuesday. We'll talk about it a little bit more, as I say, in our preview show, but they have to beat Crawley, because if they lose to Crawley on Tuesday night, I think it's going to be a very, very uncomfortable place to be there in the R Stadium come full time.
Yeah, I agree. Just to sort of add to that, I guess we credited Rico Hackett coming off the bench. He was part of the triple substitution that came off 10 minutes into the second half. Firstly, I'm surprised they didn't make any changes at half time, considering they were booed off, and I guess things could have been better in terms of from attacking point of view. But anyway, after 10 minutes in the second half, Rico Hackett came on, James Collins came on, and then McCarmer, so Jovan McCarmer came on as well. And actually McCarmer got an assist and a goal to sort of, I guess, try and help Lincoln's comeback, but wasn't able to. But I guess sort of, as well as Hackett, in terms of he grabbed his goal when that's finished, taken really well back by Hackett, but McCarmer grabbed a goal and an assist as well. So impact players off the bench, along with Collins, he sort of came deep for a lot of the balls and sort of spreaded it across the ball up the pitch. So the sort of all three really had an impact, and just I guess just echoing the thoughts really in terms of, I'm not really sure why all three didn't start.
Yeah, definitely Collins at the very least out of the three, and Rico Hackett. I mean, he's been really quite impressive at times in sort of bursts. So it'd be interesting to see if he does get a start on Tuesday after that good performance. But you mentioned Barnsley, their opponents on Tuesday at Charlton, and they got a last gasp win at Leyton Orient, coming from 1-0 down to win 2-0. And both goals came in injury time at the end of the game. And it was a deserved win, though. Perhaps it doesn't look it on paper. A bit of a smash and grab. 92nd and 97th, I think, the goals. After Jordan Brown scored a real beautiful goal for Leyton Orient. I'm not sure if you've seen that one, but that was a proper pile driver from about 25 yards out. Worth sort of picking out if you haven't seen it. But as I spoke to Sam, obviously, with the Leyton Orient game, he'd calmed down a little bit by the time I spoke to him after that. The late breakdown in terms of the Orient performance, but they were missing their sort of size. Their big defenders have been out through injury, and that played into Charlton's hands in terms of their tactic of going for more aerial balls and set pieces and corners, and a couple of goals came in that route. They seemed to target that issue, and it worked because they got their 2 goals and deserved something. Sam was saying that Leyton Orient had a chance to make it 2-0 before the late comeback, but saying that if Charlton hadn't have got anything out of the game, it would have been a robbery. It was that sort of, perhaps a draw would have been fair, but Charlton get the win in the end. And Nathan Jones, after the game, was running around like an absolute madman. It was unbelievable celebrations. London derby, I guess, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, doesn't Nathan Jones? And it's another win for Charlton. They're up to 6th. While Orient slip outside of the playoff spot. So in a decent run of form, and they're in the playoffs, and they're a real, perhaps under the radar a little bit. I feel like we've not spoken too much about Charlton over recent weeks, but they're in the playoffs now, and a win like that is just so good for confidence in terms of snatching it so late on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Really, sort of Charlton leaving it late, but ultimately getting the result that they absolutely deserved and wanted. They had 19 shots in this one, 9 of them on target. So just from that, you think, had they not scored, they would have been absolutely fuming with themselves. You mentioned sort of Sam suggesting it was only a matter of time of Charlton grabbing a goal, and these sort of teams just tick along, no matter what it takes. They win games and they move up the table, and that's exactly what Charlton have done. Sort of pretty under the radar, as you sort of covered there. Like we've not really spoke about them because they've just sort of gone about their business, being under the radar, sort of the hidden gem of the league, I guess. Really, just going stuff. They had a bit of a blip under Jones. He started really well when he came in, and then sort of dipped, and then they've just sort of gradually, slowly but surely, sort of stepped up the league table and now sit above their opponents in the league table. So they're in 6th place, Leyton Orient in 8th. So this game was really crucial, actually, not only for the respective sides, Charlton and Leyton Orient, but also for the sides around them as well. A chance for sort of, I guess, one of the teams dropping points and perhaps another catching up. So yeah, it does make things very interesting. And Charlton, mentioned play another playoff hopeful in Barnsley Tuesday. It's all very tight in there, but Charlton have got that advantage. Just opened up a little bit of a gap between them in 6th and Bolton in 7th. But that means that it's still 2 points. Like, it's still pretty catchable. But for now, they've got a little bit of breathing space after a very good performance in what's been a very good season so far for Charlton. So, yeah, smash and grab on paper, but actually pretty dominant display overall against a fellow promotion-chasing team.
Exactly that. And Leyton Orient have now lost 3 in a row, albeit against Bolton with their new manager, who's of course doing very well, Birmingham, and now Charlton. So they've lost 3 in a row, but against 3 really good teams and 3 teams above them in the table. They're 3 points outside of the playoffs, having played a game more as well. So it is not in their hands at the minute, but we will see how that goes. I'm not sure. I mean, we took Sam's word as gospel, but he did say the ref did well. So I'm not sure if it was actually Sam I was speaking to, because it didn't sound like him. Saying the referee had a good game. Richie Wellens didn't agree though with that statement. I know he was lamenting the referee's decisions after the game. But another game there that really sort of has hotted up that race for the playoffs, and there's more of that to come in midweek as well. But we're going to turn our attention to one of the big games at the bottom of the table, the game I was at in Peterborough. And we'll hear from Gareth Ainsworth as well, the other side of this short break. Welcome back then to the League On Lowdown here on the Deck Podcast Network, and we'll move along now to London Road, the Western Home Stadium, and Peterborough United against Shrewsbury Town. It was an absolutely manic 15 minutes, and then afterwards a pretty entertaining game for the rest of it as well. 8 seconds, 13 seconds, somewhere in that range. John Marquis was sent off. It was the fastest in the EFL. Believe the joint fastest in English football history, with Kevin Pressman, who's currently the goalkeeping coach at Gainsborough Trinity, who I did a bit of commentary for. But when he was at Sheffield Wednesday, he got sent off for handling the ball, a goalkeeper handling ball outside his area, which was also in 13 seconds. It is at least been touted over the last day or so. It was a real sort of manic moment. John Marquis elbowing Sam Hughes, I think it was, in the neck. Really, it was a real silly bit of play, and he got himself sent off. And then it got even weirder 8 minutes later, because Tayo Eden scored direct from a corner. The in-swinging corner, Jamal Blackman in the Shrewsbury goal was in a different postcode, really, and was nowhere near his front post, leaving a big gaping hole there for Eden to put the ball into. And then there was a penalty 5 minutes later at the other end that Benin put in the back of the net. So 15 minutes in, we'd had a red card, a goal from a corner, and a penalty, and everything was going on. And from there on in, it didn't really play like a game of 10 against 11. Shrewsbury were very much in the game, and it was very tight for most of it. Peterborough having the better of the chances, as you would expect, but Shrewsbury went close themselves and nearly scored in the second half. Had one tipped over the bar before Peterborough sealed the points in the 98th minute on the break. A little cutback for the third there. So it was a real manic game of football, and at least a manic start anyway. And as I say, we'll hear from Gareth Ainsworth in just a second. We've got a little bit of an interview clip from him after the game, but in terms of the ramifications of it, a really important 3 points for Peterborough, lifting themselves away from the relegation, Jamie and Seb, while it puts Shrewsbury back to bottom of the League One table.
Yeah, actually, Peterborough, this sort of completes a good run of form for Peterborough in the last 4. They've drawn 2 and won 2, which I think is pretty good going, given they've been before that, a bit of a slum, really, you would say, a bit of an inconsistent slum as well. So, yeah, great result here. Helped slightly by the early red card, but you mentioned there, sort of still pretty even between the two sides. You couldn't really tell that it was one side had an extra player than the other. But Shrewsbury, I guess that would have damaged the hopes, and we will hear from Ainsworth shortly. But you got to imagine that red card so early would have just damaged their hopes, really, of getting anything from this one. But Peterborough, from themselves, sort of just opens that gap between them and the drop-off zone, just widens it a little bit more. They can just breathe a sigh of relief a little bit more, as I think they're not going to get dragged into it. There's still 3 teams between them and the playoff, but only 4 points. So, they're not out of it fully, but it just gives them a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of space. If they can keep the good run form going, then they will absolutely be clear of the drop. So, good result in there. 3 different goal scorers, one straight from corner, which we don't see every day at all. And yeah, it's probably overdue. Peterborough picking up a good run of form. Given I guess the recent finishes we've seen them have in the division over the years. So they'll be happy for this. And Shrewsbury, they won't be very happy at all. They'll be disappointed, rooted to the bottom of the table. And yeah, not a good day for them. Started off, on a pretty bad foot. Or bad elbow, I should say. Bad elbow, I should say.
Very good. Surprisingly, Gareth Ainsworth was really positive after the game. He's one of those sort of colourful characters in football, isn't he? And he was cutting a very positive figure after the game. But I asked him how much that red card impacted his game plan.
Like you wouldn't believe, you get to take a red card after 10 seconds. I don't think I've ever put a training session in my life on saying we might get a red card after 10 seconds. Let's be ready for that. So yeah, of course it does. It changes everything. But the lads adapted really well, and I thought they performed very well for 97 minutes, and we conceded in the 98th, and that happens sometimes.
You spoke about your belief in the team, even in defeat today. It seems like you're confident that you can carry on and do obviously what you want to do by the end of the season. I
got some good players, some real good players. They've been through the mill this season, believe me. A pre-season, a philosophy, a whole preparation for a season would have been great. Coming in halfway through or a third of the way through is always tough for any manager. But I'm hoping that people have seen the pickup, and all I can do is keep putting the team out and keep trying to win games. That's what I'm here for, and I'll do it with my head held high. I'm very proud.
So he ends it there. I said he's very proud and head held high in terms of fighting for survival. His whole demeanour, he was really positive, and it's surprisingly so after the game. He's obviously really confident, or at least that's how he presented himself as very confident. But I do believe that's Gareth Ainsworth, isn't he? Yeah. He's very positive. He's glass half full sort of person. And they're in their next 3 games are massive. They've got Bristol, Rovers, Exeter, and Burton. If they can pick up a couple of wins in there, it turns itself back around almost instantly. But they've made themselves work a little bit harder. The gap was 7 at start of play. I think 8 by the end. They're in trouble, aren't they? There's no 2 ways in terms of painting it.
For sure. I guess 2 takeaways from what Ainsworth just said there. I guess that he's proud of his players and his positivity. I guess the positivity. If you didn't think you could get your club out of safety, I guess you wouldn't say it. Either way, you'd be positive about it. But I know. I guess also looking at it as realists, I think they are absolutely in danger, and I don't think they're going to do it. But he will have every belief that they can sort of survive and keep up and stay safe in sort of League One. But he's not going to come out and say that. That's the thing. Like, he's not going to come out and go, okay, with so many points adrift, like, it's over. No matter what, until it's mathematically impossible, he's going to come out and be positive about it all. Give the fans a hope. Give them something to cling on to, I guess. But actually, I think that's long gone. I don't think that there's any hope, or I can't see it happening really at all. I know they picked up a couple of positive results, and I can see his whole mantra being positive because if you're negative to the squad, and the squad can react badly. If you're positive, most likely they're going to react good. But I don't know. I admire his positivity, but I think it's a bit of a false positive. If that makes sense.
No, I understand what you mean. I think I'm going to disagree there because for me, I mean, it's easy to say, but without the red card, I think they probably win the game because it was really close. And without that, with John Mark who's on the pitch, who is a goal scorer, I think they probably get something out of it at the end of the day because they really weren't far off it at all. And as I mentioned before, we played the clip, they had chances and they were knocking on the door a little bit in that second half. I was getting a bit worried that I was going to have to sort of change everything I'd written in those last sort of 10 minutes or so because they were getting close and they were really knocking on the door. So I'm a little bit more confident. I know they're really in trouble, and these next 3 games, as we outlined, are absolutely vital. Yeah. They are unbelievably important, and we're going to talk about Bristol Rovers in terms of our final game to talk about. But they are massive. If they can win 2 of those, pick up 6-7 points from them, they're back in it, and they could even be near enough safe in terms of above the drop zone. But it's going to go down to the wire for Shrewsbury. But if they are going to stay up, I think it will be because of Gareth Ainsworth and that positivity, that confidence, that influence he has. That would be the thing that keeps them afloat in terms of one of those managers you run through a brick wall through for is one of those sort of managers. So it's an uphill battle. I'm going to be a little bit more confident than you. Maybe I've been swayed by speaking to Gareth Ainsworth yesterday and sort of being around him for those.
He's charmed you.
I know he's a bit of a charmer, isn't he? He's got real charisma, hasn't he?
It's his leather jacket. He's done it. It's his leather jacket,
Being stood there for about 20-25 minutes at the end of the game, we were doing the post-match interviews and things, and he had a smile on his face for a good chunk of it. So yeah, we'll see how that goes for them. But I think I'm a little bit more positive than you, even if I'm not fully convinced that they'll do it because I think Burton will stay up. But we'll talk about that at another day, and we're going to move to the other end of the table now for Stockport County. Their 2-1 win against Blackpool. And Anderson got a brace, turning it around after Ashley Fletcher scored the opener for Blackpool. And it's 1 loss in 9 now for Stockport, and they bounce back, importantly, from that defeat to Cambridge. It keeps them 5th. They're looking good at Stockport.
Yeah, they are. Really, really looking good. I've mentioned many times that I feared they might drop off at one point, but actually they're probably one of the form sides in the playoffs that have just ticked on for quite a long time now. Kept that consistency going, and that's exactly what you need going into the playoff run. And actually, they've got a bit of a gap between themselves and Bolton in sense. There's 6 points between. So even if there was a slight blip, then there's still got a bit of leeway in that. Really good result. Come back from 1-0 down to lead 2-0, and probably an inspiring team talk from Dave Challoner and Anderson just grabbing a goal 2 minutes after the half-time break. So clearly something was said at half-time, probably rocket up the bottom, I would have thought. Really good. Anderson is Swedish international, came in this season for the home side, and I could see sort of him grabbing the goal as well. So yeah, it's good player, and Stockport have got the victory, and they'll be very pleased with that. He actually came off at halftime, actually, Anderson. So as part of sort of the inspired halftime talk, there's a triple substitution, and he was part of that, off the bench and grabbing twice. And actually, one of the goals he was set up by another sub, Callum Camp. So impactful halftime break clearly there, and that's the difference between the two sides, really. Quality off the bench. Blackpool, I don't really think have that quality off the bench. I mentioned many times about their attacking output. I know they brought in Niall Ennis in January, and they brought in the guy from Shrewsbury whose name I've just slipped me, but he's out injured. Heat boxing. He's out injured. So having sort of started and scored in a couple of games, now out injured, and it's just that probably sums up Blackpool's season, I think, a little bit. But yeah, Stockport will be happy with the win. Blackpool will be disappointed to take the lead so early and to lose it in that one.
Well, they've been the draw specialists, haven't they? But they've lost and won their last 2 games. A defeat, obviously, here. They've only the top 4 have lost less games than Blackpool this season. Though they find themselves down in 11th just by the virtue that they've drawn 14 of their 33 games this season, which is quite miraculous, really. Stockport dominated it more. XG, possession, shots on target, all those sort of metrics went Stockport's way, and they got the victory that warranted. And they're up there now, aren't they? We mentioned that Wycombe, I guess, finally on Stockport before we move to our final game, that they're only a couple of points ahead of Wrexham, but they're only 4 points ahead of Stockport, and they're in that mix now. They really could gate crash, I think, for me, that top 2. And even if they've had that setback with Louis Barry leaving in January, and obviously he's got injured now out at Hull, they've not really took a step back in terms of their results and their performances, and they're still grinding out wins, grinding out points, and they're really in the mix.
Yeah, they are, and that's they've just got to keep picking up results, and that's what they have been doing, bearing that blip against Cambridge mid-week. But other than that, they have just kept things going, kept things ticking along, and it's been really impressive, really, for Stockport. There's no reason why not, given the form behind them and given the consistency that they've got, that they can't knock on the door of the top 2. You mentioned only 4 points in it between them and Wycombe, currently in second. So it's not beyond them. I'm not quite sure anyone would have predicted that at the start of the season, but that's the League One season we're in. So not beyond them, and certainly would not put it past them. But I think a playoff position they'd be very happy with. And the sides in the top 3 are all big sides that perhaps Stockport aren't as much. So they've got better quality players in their squads that mean that they're more likely to pick up results. But Stockport, nevertheless, doing really well. And I think overachieving massively, so full credit to them. Bounce back ability from that last defeat last time out.
Exactly that. And finally, then Rotherham United, a late win for them. Sam Nombe with the winner, 92nd minute. They beat Bristol Rovers away from home. We had a 7-goal thriller in the first half of the show and a 5-goal thriller to end the podcast here. And this was much needed for Rotherham. It really was. They were the better team, and it ends their run with 6 games without victory. They had lost 5 of those 6 as well. This one, though, they win, and boy, did they need it. It puts them up to 14th. And I mean, as daft as it sounds, it puts them 8 points above the relegation zone. So they're out of that scrap now, which is really desperately needed. We'll talk about Bristol Rovers in just a second. They're only 2 points ahead of the drop, but huge this one for Rotherham.
Massive. And I saw this one on Twitter, on X yesterday. So it's the first away win for a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff for Rotherham since the 26th of February 2022. So that's just over 3 years since they've won away on a Saturday 3 p.m. And they've done it in absolutely dramatic fashion with the Late Show away at Bristol Rovers. So I think it's sort of, they brought the hoodoo, clearly, of the away victories, and they'll be very pleased with that. But the result and the late goals, I think, will please Steve Evans, and just bridges that gap. Not that they were really in any real danger of dropping, but just eases any slight concerns that there might have been with the late Sam Nombe goal. So great result for Rotherham, and great to sort of break that bad record as well.
And boy, did Steve Evans enjoy it. I mean, we talked about Nathan Jones' celebration. Steve Evans obliging as well. And that's a really important win for them. Puts them up a little bit up the table and just keeps them out of that fight. Well, Bristol Rovers are very much in it. They're, as I say, 2 points ahead of the drop, but they have a game in hand to add to that as well. But 2 losses in a row, and they've been big ones. Northampton Town, and now this against Rotherham. They're losing to the teams in and around them. And they just didn't do enough here. Speaking to someone at the game, they just were second best throughout, seemed to be sort of the sentiment. And I guess really the question is, how much trouble are they in terms of relegation, Bristol Rovers?
Well, they are the side occupying the last safety place above the relegation zone. So they're in 20th, Burton in the relegation zone in 21st, and there's only 2 points between them. So you can't not say that they are in danger, really, particularly given their last few results. It's 3 defeats on the bounce now, albeit 2 of those were against Wycombe and Rotherham, and Northampton in the middle of that one as well. But still, things have got to improve. It's not looking great for Bristol Rovers at the minute. And having sort of done so well since the manager came in, there was sort of a lot of positivity and a lot of good results, good performances when the manager came in. It's now taking a slight blip again. So yeah, they are in danger. There's no denying that, and especially given Burton are actually in a good run of form themselves, they will absolutely be knocking on the door. And given the gap's only 2 points, and yeah, it's all to play for really for Bristol Rovers and Burton. The two teams could quite easily swap places. So definitely in danger, Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. They are, as you say, there, Seb, the last team in safety down in 20th, but they've got Exeter and Northampton and Peterborough just above them, and obviously the relegation zone below them. They're very much in that mix, and they've got Shrewsbury, big game, as we mentioned, on Tuesday night. So elsewhere then, it was a goalless between Wrexham and Bolton Wanderers. We'll talk more about both of those clubs in our bonus episode tomorrow. It keeps the unbeaten start going in the league, at least for Stephen Schumacher. A draw 2 for Burton against Mansfield. 1-1 there, and Mansfield missing a late penalty with Nigel Clough going back to one of his former clubs. Wigan, of course, sacking Shaun Maloney. They lost 2-1 to Reading, who are now 6 unbeaten, just the 3 points behind the playoff places. And Exeter City, a 1-1 draw for them against Northampton Town. That a big game in the terms of the relegation fight. It was one of those we expected to have to talk about, and then it finished level. So there's been no real shift in where those teams sit at the minute. Stevenage 1, Huddersfield Town 2. 3 goals in the first half, seeing victory there for Huddersfield, and a very much needed one. That's how important it was. It was much needed. And finally, then Crawley Town 0, Cambridge United 2, back-to-back wins for Neil Harris, and they leapfrog Crawley now, 6 points from safety, but they're in the fight, and we didn't expect to say that just a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for joining us on YouTube. Do subscribe and like the video if you have enjoyed it. We're hoping to be back on podcast streams in the very near future. A couple of issues sort of behind the scenes that have been sorted out there. So you'll be able to listen to us rather than having to look at us as well. But thank you for joining us here on the League One Lowdown. We'll be back, myself and Seb, tomorrow for a bonus episode of the podcast before the usual preview show from Sam and Callum later on in the week. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.